first guest is Phil Haney. He's a founding member of the Department of Homeland Security. Started in 2002 as a Customs and Border Protection Agriculture officer, but he served several tours of duty at the National Targeting Center near Washington, D.C., promoting its advanced targeting team. And Officer Haney also won numerous awards and commendations for meticulously compiling information, producing actionable reports that led to the identification of hundreds of terrorists. He's also specialized in Islamic theology and the strategy and tactics of the global Islamic movement. He recently retired less than a year ago, July 2015. But he's just written a brand new book along with Art Moore. But Phil Haney is listed as the author of that book. The book is titled See Something, Say Nothing. A Homeland Security Officer Exposes the Government's Submission to Jihad. Jihad. All right. So, Phil Haney, I hear a lot of wind coming across your microphone in the background. Are you outside?
No, I'm inside. How's that?
Okay, that's great. Maybe you just had it up to your mouth and you were breathing heavy. That might have been it.
That's probably what it is.
That's probably what it was, but that's okay. Phil, listen, we're honored to have you on Freedom Friday. First, let's just begin with this. Tell people, just give a brief synopsis of your book, give the title again, tell people where they can purchase it, and anything you want to tell us about your book generally. Then let's get into some specific questions. I want to talk to you about the San Bernardino case, the Boston Marathon case. I want to talk about the stuff of your book and all that. But tell folks, again, the title of it, where they can get it, and a brief overview of it.
The title is See Something, Say Nothing. It's derived from the DHS motto, if you see something, say something. Mm-hmm. And the story is my time within the Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Protection as a founding member, starting in March of 2003. Mm-hmm. And by providence, I will say, I was inside the agency and saw firsthand, first person, all of the most significant terrorist-related events and policies that happened between 9/11 and the time when I retired honorably in July of 2015. Mm-hmm. It's purchased. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, WND Superstore. Those I know for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fantastic. And do you have a particular website? Do you have a personal website yet?
I do not have a personal website yet.
Okay, that's all right. But we can get the book. We can start with, like you said, Amazon or WND Superstore. And the publishers... The publishers are W&D Books, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Those are my publishers as well. Awesome folks to work with. I'm sure you have found that out. Well, listen, let's talk about this. When you and I spoke earlier by email, one of the things that we're interested in talking about are the flaws in the San Bernardino case, and ditto for the Boston Marathon case. Just talk to us about that. What do you see as the flaws? What do you know about those two cases?
I'll start with the most recent news. The Inspector General for Department of Homeland Security just put out a report today or yesterday discussing the disconnect between Citizenship and Immigration Services, we call it CIS, and what was once known as ICE, we call it HSI now. Two federal agencies involved, the first one in vetting of people coming into the country, and the other one going after criminals and terrorists here inside borders. CIS would not let the ICE officers into their building. They were seeking to arrest Enrique Marquez, and they would not let them into the building. They said they did not have the authority to arrest anybody in the federal building. Was Offices of Citizenship and Immigration Services. Mm-hmm. That was one of the first errors, I would say, in the case. Other ones that I'd like to discuss would be the recent statement with the FBI, who said that they didn't find any links in the phone records to foreign terrorist groups. I'm talking about the foreign records of Syed Farouk.
Yeah, well, now you're talking about the San Bernardino case, right?
That's right. I'm talking about the San Bernardino case.
Okay, and so they said they found no records of foreign contacts? That goes against...
No evidence of foreign contacts with, or I should say contacts with foreign terrorist groups.
Okay, that's not...
On the surface, that sounds okay. It's like, oh, good. But what they didn't leave out is the other half of the sentence. Uh-huh. What about contacts with networks of possible terrorists right here in the United States? Mm-hmm. So by promoting that narrative, they're giving us a false assurance that, okay, as long as it's not a group overseas, then everything's okay.
Right.
But I know from personal experience, having worked on the network of mosques in the United States that Syed Farooq went to, that there is an extensive network in the United States of individuals and organizations with what we call derogatory information.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I worked on that case at the National Targeting Center starting in 2011 right through 2012, and that's a case that is related to the 67 records that I've talked about in public before.
Mm-hmm.
And the administration deleted those 67 records out of the system. The mosque that Syed Farooq went to
mm-hmm.
was linked to those records. So the point is, it's very plausible from a law enforcement officer's perspective that that entire incident could have been prevented if we had simply been allowed to continue doing our work,
mm-hmm.
our counterterrorism work.
Okay. Now, the information that you're giving to us right now, is this information in your new book, or this kind of information?
Mm-hmm. This is discussed in the book, and it's laid out in a very straightforward manner. The book itself is essentially chronological, starting right with 9/11, and then a vignette of the San Bernardino event, and then the book goes all the way through the whole cycle mm-hmm. and ends essentially with what happened in San Bernardino.
Okay,
so it's a full circle.
What do you think is the greatest flaw in the San Bernardino case? I mean, the lack of communication, information, prior information, etc., double speak from the upper ups about what was really happening. But if you had to put your finger on one or two things and say this is what really messed this up, what would you say?
Well, in light of the debate we're having lately about vetting
mm-hmm.
of foreign nationals coming in,
mm-hmm.
one of the things that stands out to me the most is the public statement by DHS, Department of Homeland Security, Office of Civil Rights and Civil Liberties, when they announced publicly that they did not vet the social media of Tashfeen Malik, the
mm-hmm.
wife of Syed Farooq, because they were concerned about violating her civil rights and civil liberties.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to keep in mind that she was a foreign national. So when did we begin extending constitutionally based civil rights and civil liberties to people who were not the citizens of the United States?
Right.
That right there exposed a major flaw in the whole immigration and vetting system. How many other people have they done that with? Or I should say not done that with?
Yeah, that's a great question. Listen, Phil, we're going to have to take our quick first time out, and then when we come back, we'll have a much longer segment to go a little further with this. I've got another question I want to ask you about that. Then I want you to talk to us about the Boston Marathon case. Okay?
Okay.
All right, folks, you are listening to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, my guest, one of the founding members of the Department of Homeland Security, DHS. He's written a brand new book, Spilling the Beans. It's called See Something, Say Nothing. Look at Amazon.com or WND Superstore. In the meantime, don't go anywhere because we'll be right back.
And now, the Commander-in-Chief is back. Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio.
All right, and we're back. Welcome back. My guest this afternoon is Phil Haney. He was a founding member of DHS, and Phil won numerous awards and commendations for compiling information and producing reports that were actionable that eventually led to the identification of hundreds, I said hundreds with an S, of terrorists. And he has specialized in Islamic theology and strategy and tactics of the global Islamic movement. He just retired a little less than a year ago, July 2015, and we have him here on Freedom Friday. He's just written a new book along with Art Moore, and the book is titled See Something, Say Nothing. A Homeland Security officer exposes the government's submission to jihad. Well, Phil, thank you again. We're honored that you would join us today on Freedom Friday. And folks, let me remind you, we'll have a podcast of this up after the show. It'll be up tomorrow. Plus, we will make an audio/video of this segment. It'll be on our insanely viral YouTube site. So those of you that are subscribed to the ppsimmons, which is the PNN News and Ministry Network YouTube site, you can hear it, see it again that way. It'll be embedded all over our syndicated blog, all over our Facebook channels. We have 8 or 9 of those, and probably at carlgallups.com too. So in the meantime, Phil, let's get back to your book and everything that you're talking about. You've talked with us about some of the flaws in the San Bernardino case. Before we move on, I want to ask you, me being a former law enforcement officer myself, working for 2 different sheriff's offices under 3 different sheriffs, I know something of the law enforcement community, policies, procedures. I know something about the tightness of that community and how dare we expose, how dare we speak to the flaws in that community. How are your former peers and former superiors responding to you writing a book like this and discussing policies and procedures and flaws in DHS and their handling of certain cases?
All my active duty friends are cheering me on.
Good.
This all happened in broad daylight over a long period of time. There were hundreds of people, active duty officers, my colleagues within the agency, that saw it happening year after year after year. And the fact that I was able to prevail and maintain my integrity, they all say that the book is exactly correct, very, very accurate to the point. It's not vindictive. I don't point fingers at people just for the sake of pointing things out. They are really, really encouraged greatly because the morale, as you probably know, within law enforcement and within the military is at virtually an all-time low. And the reason why is simply because we're not allowed to fulfill our vow, protect our country from threat, both foreign and domestic.
I know.
So they are very, very encouraged at the book, and they're standing behind me.
Good.
100%.
Well, we are too, my friend. And of course, our last 8-year commander-in-chief has had an awful lot to do with that. You may or may not want to speak to it. You don't have to even agree, but that's just my understanding. But I'm glad you've written this book, and I'm honored that you're here today. So talk to us about some of the flaws in the Boston Marathon case. It was fascinating what you told us about San Bernardino. Tell us about the Boston Marathon case.
Well, the most remarkable part about that was the testimony of Secretary of Homeland Security Janet Napolitano on the 18th of April 2013 before Jeff Duncan, Vice Chairman of the House Committee on Homeland Security. During the interchange, he asked her, is it really a good idea, paraphrasing a little, that we should deport this Saudi student before we understand completely his role or possible role in the bombing? And she replied to him, your question is so full of misapprehension and misunderstanding that it's not even worth an answer.
Wow.
And the really incredible thing about this, if you can picture this, is that I was literally standing in my office with the evidence that she was not telling the truth in my hand, looking at it. Now, the Homeland Security knew, because I had contact with them, what the actual truth was. So now we come to a moment of great moral crisis. What are we going to do now? So I was requested to forward that information to them, which I did. And before it was all said and done, I got investigated by the Department of Justice for unethical use of classified information.
Oh, yeah.
They convened a grand jury and did everything they could to indict me on criminal charges. Because here's a question. There's a risk assessment involved in this. If you choose to lie about something, there must be a reason why you consider the risk of lying or not telling the truth greater than the risk of simply telling the truth.
Sure.
So why did the government, with Janet Napolitano as the official representative, choose to disinform the Homeland Security Committee when she said the Saudi student was not a person of interest, not a subject of interest, and was never considered for deportation, when in fact all 3 of those statements were untrue? What was the calculation that they would risk not telling the truth about that versus simply saying, let's have a timeout committee, let's go to a sidebar, and I'll discuss it behind closed doors, why we came to these decisions? She could have simply done that, but she chose not to.
Mm-hmm.
And then she repeated it again 4 days later before Senator Grassley's Homeland Security Committee, and W was not a subject of interest or a person of interest or was ever going to be deported.
Right. Wow.
The fact is, those are all untrue statements.
That's amazing, Phil. Listen, we're going to have you back on in the near future because there's so many more things I want to talk to you about, especially about the Boston Marathon case. I know a lot of people say it was a false flag event. There are some people saying the whole thing was a hoax, et cetera, et cetera. You were directly involved in it. I would love to get some information from you, but we're out of time. I hear the music. I know that, you also have some theories about how all this can be fixed, and I want to talk to you about that. Do you think you could come back on again sometime soon?
Yes, I'd very much like to. Thank you, everyone, for
Good
listening.
Deal. Good deal. Thank you.